Okay, hey guys, gonna give a kind of talk through of Act 3, Scene 1 here. So we start with Mercutio, Benvolio, some other guys from, the Montague house. This is still the next day after the party, right? And they're talking about how they don't want to be. Benvolio is talking about how he's wary of running into Capulets. They don't want to escape a brawl. They don't want to get into a fight, right? And Mercutio kind of picks up with actually what Tybalt was making fun of him for. You're one of these fellows that when he enters the confines of a tavern, does this, blah, 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 and all these different reasons that he acts like he doesn't want to get in a fight, but he really does. Somebody like that, right? Always the person who wants to jump in and act like, oh, I was just breaking it up, right? But they really want to fight just as much as anybody else. That's what Tybalt said Benvolio was before, and that's what Mercutio continues all through here to make fun of him for, whether that's the case or not, right? But Mercutio likes to make fun of everybody. Okay, so anyway, here come the Capulets, as predicted, right? And Mercutio says, I don't care. So Tybalt comes in. Now we know who Tybalt's looking for, right? He is looking for Romeo, right? But Mercutio messes with him, right? Make it a word and a blow is in a blow of a sword, right? You'll find me apt enough to that. Mercutio, hothead, of course, is ready to fight, right? But he's looking for Romeo. He says, Mercutio, thou consortst with Romeo, right? Mercutio's like, oh, does that make us minstrels? Like we're in a musical group with each other? Um, so they go back and forth. They go back and forth. They're kind of, almost looking like they're going to get some kind of conflict. But then, of course, enter Romeo. So Romeo comes in, right? We know where he's just come from, right? But he's not in the mood to get in a fight. He never was, and he certainly isn't now. You got to keep in mind, Tybalt is actually sort of about to become part of his family because he's about to marry Tybalt's cousin, which is Juliet, right? If all goes as planned. Well, actually, they already have, right? They have in the end of Act 2. So, um, Romeo, the love I bear thee can afford thee no better term than this, thou art a villain. And Romeo replies very submissively, which is going to disgust Mercutio, and says, I love thee better than thou canst devise, till thou should know the reason of my love. I can't tell you what's going on right now. He's not going to blurt out that he's married Juliet, right? But Mercutio is disgusted by this dishonorable, vile submission, right? He gets his sword out because he can't stand Tybalt's bullying Romeo and Romeo cowering, not cowering exactly, but kind of submitting in front of him and trying to be peaceful, right? Because it's feeding Tybalt's ego and his temper, right? So Tybalt gets his sword out. Romeo tries to get them to stop, but he gets his sword out too. Mercutio gets his sword out too, and they start fighting, right? Romeo steps between them, and you have to kind of really look at the action carefully here. And all of a sudden, Mercutio says, I am hurt, a plague on both your houses. I am sped. Funny, we should be talking about a plague right now, but Mercutio is kind of issuing a curse because he's gotten apparently hurt by one of their swords when Romeo was jumping between them because he probably couldn't see what was going on. Now, was Tybalt really trying to hurt Mercutio? We don't really know, right? We don't know. It depends on how you interpret it, how you might direct the scene. But Mercutio's joking around, right? He's saying a scratch, but 'tis enough, enough to what, right? Enough to hurt him, enough to tickle him, enough to kill him. We don't know how bad he's hurt, but he's been hit by one of those swords, right? And Romeo says, courage, the hurt cannot be much. And he says all these kind of jokes about it's not so deep as a well, nor wide as a church door, but he keeps saying is enough, is enough. And he keeps saying a plague on both your houses. You can tell he's upset, but even though he's upset and maybe even horribly hurt, he's still kind of joking around because that's his personality, right? So they've made worms meat of me, a plague on both your houses, he says. And Romeo's getting upset because he realizes that Mercutio is hurt. Of course, we can't tell exactly how badly he's hurt. Benvolio runs off and comes back. Mercutio is dead. Okay, this is horrible. It's one of Romeo's best friends. He's actually a relative of the prince, Mercutio, too, because the prince is not going to be happy about them fighting, and the prince is not going to be happy about that somebody's died, right? But what does he do, right? So Tybalt comes back again, right? And now Romeo starts to really lose his temper. All right, I've got a question about one of these lines in here. I know it's going to come soon. I want to answer it for you, but Romeo is obviously ashamed of how he's acting before. He feels bad, like it's his fault that Mercutio might have been. Then Mercutio is dead, right? His friend is dead, and they fight. And what happens? Oh gosh, Romeo kills Tybalt. So Tybalt killed Mercutio, maybe partly on purpose, maybe accidentally, maybe Romeo's fault because he jumped between them. And then Romeo, for to avenge the death of his friend, purposefully fights Tybalt and kills Tybalt. For all of Tybalt's swordplay, Romeo in his rage kills him. right? So they all run, and Romeo says, "Oh, I'm fortune's fool." That's a really famous line there, right? Because he feels like no matter what he does, and no matter how much he tries to be peaceful, things keep going wrong, right? Is it because they're star-crossed lovers, or is it because they're making bad decisions? Is it fate, or is it bad decisions? We don't really know, and Shakespeare leaves that up to us, right? Okay, so um, Mercutio is gone, right? Tybalt is gone. Um, Benvolio tells everybody there's Tybalt. Now here comes the prince. Now you know the prince is not going to be happy with this, right? He asks who are the vile beginners of this fray, who started this fight, and Benvolio tells everybody what happened, right? But the problem here is, if you're the prince, what do? Right? Because Tybalt killed Mercutio. So the next person who starts a fight or does something, the prince said he was going to execute them, right? But Tybalt is now dead because Romeo killed him. So is Romeo solving or is Romeo dealing out the justice that the prince would have done anyway? That's what his parents are going to say, right? But uh, Tybalt's aunt and uncle, Juliet's parents, aren't going to see it that way. They're going to see it as Romeo is a vigilante and he shouldn't have done that. That was the prince's job, right? Romeo slew Tybalt. Romeo must not live, says Lady Capulet, right? And then the prince says, Romeo slew him, he slew Tybalt, who now the price of his dear blood doth owe, right? So who pays for this? Montague says, not Romeo, he's Mercutio's friend, right? So Prince finally decides, for that offense, immediately do we exile, keyword, exile him hence, kick him out of town, right? He says, uh, let Romeo hence in haste, else when he is found, that hour is his last, right? Now, this is horrible, right? Because he and Juliet just got married. They haven't told anybody they got married. Nobody knows. And Romeo's now kicked out of town. Now, could he take off with Juliet? Maybe. Juliet's pretty young. Is she going to abandon her family for him? What's going to be the plan here? Is if Romeo stays around, he's going to be executed. Otherwise, he has to leave. He has to leave his family. What's the friar going to do? What's the nurse going to do? Are they going to be involved with this? Well, we don't know. We will find out soon.